My name is Eugene Chong, and I'm an osteopath. 2 years ago, I've discovered my life purpose was to educate, to share my knowledge or resources in order to help end the suffering or pain that people are going through. And what I've discovered so far is that in order to help people out of suffering or out of pain, we require two things. The first thing is psychological flexibility, and the second thing is movement variability. Psychological flexibility meaning for you to understand that everything is based on your perception, and that it's due to a belief that you have, and it's also for you to be able to be much more resilient, having the resources to be able to cope with the external stresses that comes into your life. So in a way, it means that for you to have the resources to be able to change your thinking, and if you are able to have that flexibility in your psychological or cognitive, you have a much more healthier mental state. And the second thing is movement variability. I believe that people who are in pain in terms of biomechanical is because they lack certain movement. Due to their lifestyle, they have been doing activities always involving the same muscles or same type of movement. And they have lost a certain plane of movement. And because they have not engaged, so what I mean is that, for example, if you always go to the gym and you train in a certain manner, and you might sometimes find beneficial in doing mobility movement. For example, if you do some dance move or some gym move, okay, because you are so used to the strength and conditioning of lifting movement, you somehow lack the mobility side of like a ballet dancer or a gymnastic or a person who do swimming. Okay, so a person who have pain is because they lack certain movement in certain direction. So that is what I mean by having a movement variability. And I hope to bring your joints into a more neutral position so you are able to assess the movement in 3D plane, so the sagittal plane, the frontal and transverse plane. The program, low back foundation rehabilitation, the focus pretty much is on two things. The first thing is breathing drills. The reason why so much emphasis is put on to breathing is because if you put your body in certain position that is not used to or is quite challenging, you will notice your breath rate is much more higher. And if you're used to a certain position, you can breathe in nicely and slowly in that position. So for us to teach our body to accept the movement or certain position, we first need to breathe in nice and slow to engage the parasympathetic nervous system so that our body can own that position or own that movement. Okay? And with the breathing, we are focusing on the exhalation. So when you have a good exhalation, then you can inhale nicely. The breathing drill in the program is not meant to be used on a day-to-day basis. It's only meant to be used for the breathing exercise. And as for the muscles focus, we focus on the posterior back chain, which comprise of the gastrocsoleus, the hamstring and the glutes and the back extensor muscles. When we move or lift something, right, we don't engage just one muscles. It's always a chain of muscles that is being involved. Okay? So if you imagine that when you're lifting some certain stuff, 25% of the load goes into your gastrocsoleus, 25% goes into the hamstring, 25% goes into the glutes, and 25% goes into the back extensor muscles. That is a good distribution of load. Let's say your soleus, if it's not working, maybe like it's working 10%, or your hamstring is working 10%, then you understand that the glutes or your back extensor will have to work more. And usually people who have back pain, they have very tight back muscles, or their back muscles are more well developed compared to their lower body legs muscles. And most of the time, they just use their lower back to lift and to move stuff instead of their lower body strength. Let's say that the gastrocsoleus is the queen, and then the hamstring is the kid, and then the glutes is the father. And it is very important for us to place emphasis on the gastroc and soleus first. It's because the first thing that we come in contact with the ground to generate ground reaction force is the foot. The foot landed on the ground first, and then the force will then distribute all the way up into the pelvis. And there is a chain of muscles, and they need to communicate with each other. So the foot needs to communicate with the gastroc needs to communicate with hamstring to the glutes. Okay? If one part is not working well, the other part will have to take up the slack. So in order to give you a more robust back, or to be more resilient, the program is basically focusing on co-contraction of your gastrocsoleus, hamstring and glutes. We are trying to fire all these muscles together in the same exercise, rather than trying to target specific muscles, because muscles don't work on its own. It always works in a chain. And if you are able to get your gastrocsoleus and hamstring working, and get that 25% even distribution, then your back would thank you, because you're reducing the burden on the back. Okay? There is a lot of knowledge that has been put into this program, and there's a lot of sacrifice in terms of time, in terms of money, and in terms of effort. So I really hope that this program is able to help those of you who are experiencing back pain. And I hope that you can give this a try and see what happens. If you find this program to be useful for you, that it helps you with your back pain and make you much more resilient, or that you learn some new stuff, I would appreciate if you can donate some money for me. I charge 90 New Zealand dollars for half an hour of session in my clinic. I would appreciate if you can send me 90 New Zealand dollars, or whichever amount that you feel that is reasonable. And the amount of information in this program is so much more that I give compared to a session that I can have with my client in my clinic. Give it a go.